Good afternoon. Welcome all of you to Forest Hill. Today we are going to have a discussion on ballot measure J, and we have a representative from each side. I would like to welcome Mark Kelly and George Riley. I will give you a little bit of a biography on each of the gentlemen, and then they will come up and give a 5-minute presentation, and then after that we will allow you to ask them questions, but they will give answers, and then about 10 minutes before 5, they will each be able to give you a 5-minute summary to end out our event for tonight. So Mark Kelly has decided to go first. I'll give you his biography. Mark Kelly is originally from Oregon and moved to the Monterey Peninsula in 2017 after losing his home to the devastating Santa Rosa fires. Mark made Monterey his new adopted home after being reintroduced to his wonders from the oldest of his 2 daughters, who graduated from MIIS. He is a graduate of the University of Oregon, BS in Political Science, minor in Economics. Formerly a member of the Oregon Army National Guard and did his basic training at AIT at Fort Ord. Mark's 94-year-old mother, Hattie, is one of the oldest World War II Marine veterans in Oregon and is the face of billboards for Meals on Wheels in Portland, Oregon. Mark has years of experience working in government affairs and politics, including Director of Government Affairs for the City of Portland, campaign manager for the successful campaigns of Neil Goldschmidt's Oregon gubernatorial race and Gordon Smith's U.S. Senate race, directing 4 continuous national efforts to successfully secure congressional funding for roads, sheriff's patrols, and a wide variety of educational programs for 732 rural counties in 3,000 school districts, and has been a private consult on a wide range of water issues, working with agriculture, forestry, irrigation districts, and public-private water utilities. Currently, Mark is the deputy campaign manager for the No on Measure J campaign. After Mark, we will have George Riley. George Riley is the director of, he has his written up a little bit differently. He has a BS degree in geology from Leahy College in Pennsylvania, U.S. Navy Communications and Public Information Officer, master's degree, Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Current managing director, volunteer at Public Works Now.
Public Water Now.
Excuse me. Public Water Now. Thank you. Public Water Now is a community-based 501c4 nonprofit educational organization composed of California American Water residential ratepayers and supporters. PWN promotes timely achievement of the lowest cost, sustainable water supply for the Monterey Peninsula through public ownership. PWN's goal is public ownership of the production and distribution facilities and services currently owned by the California American Water Company, including any future desalination facilities. PWN sponsored Measure J, which requires a feasibility study in order to get the facts necessary for an appropriate discussion of affordability and desirability. George's public service employment of 28 years in Philadelphia and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, then with San Mateo County, California. Work experience with housing, court consolidation, library expansion and consolidation, jail overcrowding, poverty programs, welfare division, community mediation, employment training, homeless, public defender, court services, and more. He moved to Monterey in 1997. In 2005, he founded Citizens for Public Water, then merged with Public Water Now in 2012. He has been a community intervener with California Public Utilities Commission since 2008. He is on the Technical Advisory Committee with the Mayor's Water Authority. He is a board member of the League of Women's Voters of Monterey County and was active in CSUMB's OLLI program, Peace Coalition of Monterey, California, Veterans for Peace, and many political campaigns. He is a part-time painter and shows his work in the MPAF Gallery on Cannery Row. So if you would please welcome these two gentlemen with a little applause. So first up is Mark. You're welcome. I'll let you know when it's 5 minutes.
But you will. Take a look around this room. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here this afternoon. I do live in Monterey and have since, actually, folks, just as a moment of quiet, it was 1 year ago at 11 o'clock tonight, October the 8th at 11:07 p.m. When my and five other, not that I'm in poor company, and 5,000 other houses were lost in Monterey. So this is the 1 year, excuse me, in Santa Rosa, this is the 1 year anniversary. What I'm going to do in these opening comments is try to be very broad, because I know you're all going to have terrific questions. Most of you have lived here most, if not all, your lives. I figure if I can make it here 30 years, I might be a beginner in this community. But I expect that the questions will get to be very, very, very specific, and my intent today is to be very specific. What I hear all the time when I attend public meetings from Public Water Now, and I've now been to 5 or 6, is that Callahan mismanaged the water supply, Callahan illegally pumped from the river, Callahan failed to solve the problems. Basically, all the big issues we face in terms of the water in this community, problems some of you have lived with most, if not all your lives, are all Callahan's fault. And if you get rid of Callahan, the problems go away. In reality, this is simplistic and just not accurate, because the truth is much more complicated. Actually, the truth of the matter and what we were looking for in terms of our success has recently taken a big step forward. We've been handling a complex set of problems when it comes to water. Over the years, there's been many parties working for solutions. But what Callahan was working on and was recently approved by the California Public Utility Commissioner is actually building a solution that will provide this community with enough water to do what it needs. And when I say that, I don't mean be sloppy with water, and I certainly don't mean to articulate in any way be irresponsible. But we can't even build a house. You can't put in another toilet. You couldn't build anything in the back of your house for someone to live in. We are basically living currently in water poverty and have been for a long time. We need enough and proper water to support people, their lives, and their work, public safety and fire protection, and make it so even in a drought, we don't have to fear water rationing. Please take a minute to visualize the future. Currently, the idea of running out of water has become part of our culture. Now, don't get me wrong. You heard Governor Brown say there's a new normal when it comes to water use in this state. And I come from Sonoma County, wine and grape world, and they deal with serious water issues up there as well. And we still need to conserve. We'll still need to have efficient appliances. And it's probably not a great idea to think about re-landscaping everybody's yard. But having a lack of water be the commanding factor for every important decision we make about our community and our future will, in the near future, no longer be the case. Instead, those decisions can be made based on what we as a community think is best. Originally, our community was served by dams in the Carmel River. I'm sure you're all aware of that. But as the population grew and the water supply was not enough, Callahan drilled wells. Those wells were fully permitted and entirely legal. Then comes the drought of the 90s. The river stopped running to the ocean, which was serious problem for steelhead trout, and I've spent a whole chunk of my life doing consultations on fisheries, not just steelhead, but coho and chinook. I know that to be an absolute fact. A complaint was filed stating that the wells were causing the river to dry up. The Water Resources Control Board looked into it and decided that instead of pumping groundwater, which was for what the permit was for, but because of the drought, we were indeed pumping underflow from the river. And Cal-Am did not have permits for surface water withdrawals. In one single decision, 70% of the historic water supply went away. It was not Cal-Am's fault. I'm not going to blame it on anybody. We just had a prolonged drought and lost the groundwater. Since that time, there's been a concentrated effort to find an alternative. Let us not forget that early on the peninsula, we opted out of not to participate in the State Water Project. In 1990, local bodies turned down an offstream reservoir proposal, and in 93, we the people voted down a desal project, and in 95, we voted down a new dam project. But during that time, Pebble Beach, thank goodness, built their own reclamation project using reclaimed water, which was godsend. Also, thanks to the Water Management District and Cal-Am, we now have an aquifer storage recovery program in place, which will ultimately provide 1,300 acre-feet of water being pumped through Cal-Am into Cal-Am and Monterey District wells and Seaside. We need a drought-proof, reliable source of water. Like every community who wishes to survive and thrive, without water, you have nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's that vision, particularly with the recent progress made, on which we all need to maintain and focus our effort. We believe that Measure J is a government takeover, and we'll be discussing this significantly and specifically in the next 40 minutes. Thank you for your attention, and I genuinely appreciate it.
Hi, I'm George Riley. Do I need a mic? Hello?
Probably do, yes.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for inviting us. I think I was here last February or so. We were collecting signatures at the time. And that was a small turnout. Probably the whole room would have been made up of this number. But it's so good to see 3 times that many. Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm now seeing signs what I need to do. So Mark Kelly, it's the first time I've heard him present for Cal-Am, and it's interesting. Let me just very briefly say that Public Water Now is a nonprofit organization. It's educational. For the last 4 years, we've been putting on public forums on various subjects of water. Almost every forum we have, it has a water subject somewhere in it, if not the main focus. We've been trying to educate the community on what has been going on historically, what seems to be the future going forward, and then our campaign. Our campaign is that we firmly believe that public water will be the best way to manage our limited resources under local control with elected officials locally who are making decisions on behalf of the locality. That is extremely different from what we have right now with Cal-Am. And Cal-Am blames, they're talking about a government takeover, and you should know, and we should even have this kind of conversation, that the government, in effect, is blamed by Cal-Am, their own government, which is the California Public Utilities Commission, is blamed by Cal-Am for setting their rates, and that's why their rates are so high, because the PUC does it, and they don't do it, and therefore they're innocent of the reason why we have such high water rates. And they seem to insist that it's the PUC that runs things. And they do, up to a point. But they only get the ideas of what they're working on from Cal-Am. Cal-Am makes these proposals to the PUC, and then it's a kind of a Siamese twin relationship. They're hooked at the hip. The PUC is designed to monitor a corporate utility. Water is this one, but they also do energy, power, telecommunications. So PUC has a big job that way. But their job is to protect the corporate utility. The responsibility of PUC is to do three things for a corporate utility. One, guarantee that they have an opportunity to earn a profit, which is built into their budget system, budget process. Number two, they guarantee that the stock will be attractive to investors. And number three, they assure that their bottom line is positive. Well, that's a gravy train for whoever gets that. Because no business you can identify on the peninsula, nowhere does any business have those kind of guarantees. Nowhere except with this utility, local utility. Cal-Am is we are a cash cow for Cal-Am. We have the highest rates. Cal-Am doesn't take responsibility for that. The State Water Board ordered them off the Carmel River. Their summary decision was quit killing the river. That was done in 1995. It's 20-some years later. There's still no water supply. They've had several attempts to create a water supply. They failed each time. What we're trying to do is present the facts about Cal-Am, and we want to get the facts on if public ownership is feasible. Our Measure J asks one question. Vote yes, and we get the facts. What happens after that is a series of public hearings. It'll be by the local water management district, their local elected board. Water is local. We're trying to say, make the decision process local as well. Right now, Cal-Am refuses to take responsibility for overdrafting the Carmel River. They refuse to take responsibility for overdrafting the Seaside Basin. And now, the latest project is embedded in Marina, and they want to take their water when they have no water rights to it. I'm going to get off right now, but what I'm trying to emphasize is that Cal-Am refuses to take responsibility on what it has done to this community, and we feel it's time for a change. And the way you can get a change is to vote yes on J in order to get the facts. We can't buy Cal-Am with this vote, and it will not happen with this vote. But we can get the facts, and we can then have a big debate about a year from now, approximately. We'll have a big debate about the whole possibility and how it's financed and everything else. So I'm here for Q&A and Cal-Am's comments and yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess we'll have both of you stand up and take questions, and we'll have the audience ask questions. Just raise your hands and let me know who you would like to ask the question to. Yes, sir.
My question is for both. My concern is the water, but receiving the water and the...
Can you hold up? I can't hear.
My concern is what happens taking over the water management, actually delivering the water to us. Cal-Am has been doing this for years, and the Water Management Bureau doesn't have an infrastructure, as I understand it. Maybe, as I understand it, it doesn't have the infrastructure there to do it. My concern is how many employees are there working the streets in the Monterey area, and for public water now, how do we get those personnel that we'd be losing if we take over Cal-Am?
Anyone want to go first?
Well, I'll go first and take my hits from Cal-Am. The people who are doing the work right now would continue to do the work. We expect that all existing employees would continue with the transition. When you buy a company, you don't fire everybody and hire all over again. These people know the business, they know where the leaks are, they know where the inventory is, they know the territory, they know the streets, they know everything. So the assumption would be all existing employees would transfer over to the new organization. We just had this experience in Missoula, we know about the experience in Missoula, Montana. They just took over their system about 2 years ago, and they made arrangements to transfer everybody over to the new city, a public agency. It went from corporate to public, and the only people that didn't transfer over were those that chose retirement instead. And there may be one or two other outlier reasons. But the assumption is all existing employees would be transferred over and do the same work they've been doing forever, or for their career.
Do you want to follow up with that?
Please. Let me answer your first question. It's about 100 people. Not all of those are in the field, but it's approximately 100 people. Secondly, CalAm is not for sale. If this were to move forward, it would require a hostile effort to try and acquire their assets, and you are right. We believe the company, as I hope we can get this a little deeper with another question, but that we believe the company is valued, if you count its existing rate-based assets, plus other assets, which includes its water rights, and a lot of the assets that they have that haven't yet been amortized. The total cost of the system is about $1.044 billion. And if we want to, in the next little while, I'll go through those numbers with you very specifically. And if there's an email site, we'd be glad to send this summary report to somebody, so any of you can print it off and look at it. In terms of the employees moving over, the district that they'd be going to is already $4,500,000 in debt to its PERS system, which, as you know, in the state of California is $150 billion in shortfall. These are employees who have good retirement programs, funded retirement programs, moving into a public system with only about 40 employees that's already $4.5 million in debt. This is a bad idea. Does that answer your question?
Okay, next question. Yes, ma'am. You have to hold the microphone close to your mouth.
And point it towards your mouth.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Do I have it loud enough? All right. Well, I'm a newer resident to Monterey. And, I'm sorry, closer? I'm a new resident to Monterey, been here almost 2 years, and just left Ojai, where we went through this same process there, so I'm somewhat familiar with that aspect. I guess my question to you, to CalAm, is when you say you can't afford us, it sounds like you're saying you're trapped, you're done, you're stuck, we're too expensive for you to buy. And so therefore, you're just going to have to keep paying expensive water bills. Now, I may be wrong, and that's not what you're trying to say, but when I read the brochures and the flyers, that's what I see. The other question, the other thing I see, and it's just from a purely visual standpoint, I get deluged with no on Proposition J folders in my mailbox, maybe 2 to 3 every day. And I'm just wondering how they're financed. Am I paying high water bills so you can send out flyers to my address that basically say I can't afford to buy you? So that's basically my statement, and I don't know if you have an answer for me or not. I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just saying those are the things that I see. Okay. Thank you.
Ma'am, what is your name again?
I'm sorry?
What is your name again?
My name
Yes.
is Etta.
Etta, hi. Etta, let me assure you something. Given what I have learned about water in this community over the last 6 weeks, you might be one of the most pleasant people I've met, Etta, so thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Let me first relate directly to the issue of cost and water. As a No on J campaign, not CalAm, but No on J, but they are the major funder, so let's not pull any punches. What we're basically saying is, you can't buy it out, it's going to be expensive. It's about $1,800 a year for 30 years to acquire it. That doesn't mean it's not doable. So there's no way the No on J campaign is saying this can't be done. We're saying understand the risks if you start down this path. And the second question you asked about was the water rates. Maybe we'll get into this a little deeper, but let me just say for the moment, what it really amounts to in our community is because of the water supply shortage, we have a tiered rate system that isn't great for any of us. That tiered rate system is designed to force conservation by charging more money. If we can get an adequate water supply in place by the end of 21-21 with the desal plant and Monterey One pure water, 3,500 acre feet, both in place, the first will be in place by next August, we can re-examine the entire rate structure in terms of what it costs to have water, and will look anything like it does now. And for those who say a desal plant will double our costs, they haven't done any homework because nobody knows. And the fact of the matter is, it's a solution to the issue. Lastly, on the flyers, I'd like to address that directly because I've been through this rodeo once or twice before. When public corporations take on an issue like this, the money they use to finance the campaign comes out of what would ever otherwise have been paid to the ratepayers in dividends and is not allowable back into the rate base in any way, shape, or form. So it's cash spent that would otherwise have gone to the investors and cannot go back into the rate base. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that,
Very briefly, thank you. We feel that Cal-Am is afraid of something. They have a fear campaign going. They want you to fear the facts. They want you to fear $1 billion. They want you to fear how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost to do this. They want you to fear it. What it's really about is they fear the facts. All we're saying is let's get the facts and then we'll have a serious discussion because then we're all talking from the same playing field. And then recently, Cal-Am said they need to level the playing field because they sued us. We have a hearing tomorrow in court. They sued us because we apparently have an advantage because it's not a level playing field. Not a level playing field. We're up against the largest water corporation in the entire United States. It's not a level playing field. We knew that from the very beginning. But for Cal-Am to claim that it's not a level playing field, this is ludicrous. Cal-Am says it's worth $1 billion. In the voter guide, which are in the mail now, and you can read their argument, they say they're worth $700 million. So Cal-Am can't get their own story straight. They say it's $1 billion. Their own document, signed by all the people that support no, say it's $700 million. So they just throw numbers out there, and they're trying to scare us. All I'm saying is, there's a lot of facts out there that need to be part of this discussion. We present as much of the factual material as we can. We cite our material. It's usually Cal-Am data that's supporting it. Cal-Am, when they put their data out, if you look at the footnotes of their own material, they cite newspaper articles. That's not research. But that's what they're getting their facts from. And it could be their own storyline that they're citing. And they cite this as authority. It is not a level playing field. We know that. And we know we're fighting a David and Goliath battle. And all we're saying is, let's get the facts, David says, little guy, let's get the facts and have a real discussion. And Cal-Am says, mighty Goliath, don't get the facts and leave things the way they are, because if you do, things continue as they are. And we're saying, enough of that. We don't need to continue what we have. We need a decent evaluation of an option. And that's what we think ought to. 85%, 87% of the entire United States right now get their water from public agencies for some reason. And we're saying there are a lot of reasons for that. And I don't want to get into that yet, but I will. But we're the anomaly here. We're the oddball out. We have a corporate structure that exports about 50 cents of every dollar that they collect from us. It leaves the community. To think that they're a valuable investment in our own community, yes, they build a pipeline, and then they take all the money from us, and half of it, right out of the area. That's not a good community partner, and that's not a good system. There's an option. Public water is a different option. We hope we can at least evaluate all the factors related to that.
You want to speak on that, or you want to go to the next question?
There's only one piece, because we're not directly involved in this, but I think we've got the funny look on people's faces at the that, about this lawsuit. Here's what I know about the lawsuit that was filed. The Elections Commission in the state of California requires that all of your lawn signs and your billboards and whatever you have has to have signage of a certain dimension that says this was approved for and paid for by. That's just state law. And apparently the Cal-Am lawn signs and larger signs have no disclosure statement on them at all. And so there's been some sort of lawsuit filed objecting to the fact that they simply didn't put disclosure on there, which has been part of state law for a long time and was further accentuated by this session of the legislature. I don't know how it's going to turn out. It has no effect on the Measure J campaign and how we're conducting ourselves.
Let me go to the gentleman in the back since you raised your hand. Excuse me. Close your mouth.
You might have bad breath. Good afternoon. I'm Joe Haddon. I'm here, and you can tell by the button on my shirt, I'm working on yes on J. And before we moved here a year and a half ago, we lived many years in a little town near the middle of the state called Ojai. And we had problems with our local water dealer. In fact, if you have a map of the state of California and you take all the Cal-Am principalities on it, it looks like it has freckles everywhere. They're all over. And the money that comes from us, as you know, goes back to someplace in mid-America. But to get on this issue, we in Ojai, about 2 years ago, became dissatisfied with Cal-Am. And we had a vote, and the representatives of Cal-Am told us it was going to cost $1 gazillion to buy them out, and we couldn't afford it. And there was a little town that put us on this path that went independent. I'm trying to think of the name. It started with a J. Anybody know? No.
Oh, hi.
Anyway, they went through this emancipation prance, and they were told it would take $43 million to buy them out. It was even smaller than this one. And so they went ahead and they ended up paying $13 million is what the final number was. The same thing was true in Ojai. They wanted the world to know its gold, and the final number turned out to be less, much less. And the difference between public and private is profit and controlled profit. And we're now in a situation where, according to the pie chart put out by the pro-Prop 7, Prop J people, a little over 25% of every dollar that goes into the water company goes back to wherever their home is in the mid-America. It's not easy, and we can't be frightened. It can be done. We did it. It was a little town just slightly larger than this one. And the benefits are many. And what we did, we went to the attorney who represented the first little town. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm telling you. I'm giving you a speech, aren't I? Okay, let me find a question. How about, where does the money that the people who pay the water company, Cal-Am, where does it go in terms of percentage? How much of it goes to percentage for waves, and how much of it goes back to the mothership in mid-America?
I'm going to answer the question, but it is largely a Cal-Am question, not a campaign question. However, we've had to do some homework because of statements made by the proponents of this measure that said basically in 2016, Cal-Am made $14 million in profit. That's what it says on their pie chart. Now, I hope they stop that because Mr. Riley was corrected at the NAACP meeting by a Cal-Am employee. The fact of the matter is, if you really study it and do your homework and don't just read numbers and assume somebody is authoritarian or accurate, the actual number was $3 million. There was $3 million in profit over the whole system. $11 million of that was a requirement by the PUC that had to be turned in, that talked about the potential for what's the proper term? For future recovery over the next 5 to 7 years. Not guaranteed, but possible future recovery based on the $50 million pipeline that's just been finished to deal with the ability to get the Pure One Monterey water in, plus a massive amount of work that's going on in the piping underneath the ground. So the number is exaggerated, out of line, and incorrect. It's $3 million in the entire rate base, and that is less than 10 to 15 cents going back to anywhere. And the rest of it is investments back into this community. I'm sorry, I wanted to answer your question. And the OHI and this system are really substantially different in terms of the amount of money that's sitting in the ground, plus some other stranded costs that perhaps we'll get into. Thank you.
This is the famous pie chart. The information came from Cal-Am. The information that Cal-Am reports to the PUC is a public document. It wasn't apparent that we could get more information than what was directly available, so we filed a Public Records Act request to get more information. So we have what's publicly available easily, what was a little more difficult to get, but still public information, and we compiled this chart. This chart is based on Cal-Am's numbers. Everything in the blue is documented. Everything in the green is documented. I can go into this if you're really curious. Everything in the orange is documented. And then the record stops. And that totals about $45 million. But they also reported they made $60 million that year as revenue. So the difference between $60 million that they reported and the $45 million that they document leaves a big hole in the accounting system. And we just filled it saying, you must take it somewhere, it must go out, and it's not identified as an expenditure. We call it profit. I know you don't call it profit. But that's the difference between what's the cost of doing service and the money you made. And most businesses call that profit. And we know you paid corporate taxes, so that's identified. So they can't explain why they only say they have $3 million in profit. They can't explain it. They stay away from this. They do not attack this chart. They say we don't know what we're talking about, and we're dealing with the wrong numbers. They never give you a number to deal with. They don't give a comparison. They don't say our report really said this and that and the other, or did you see all the other reports? They don't do any of that. That's why we feel like the documentation that we have for our data is legitimately valid numbers from a bona fide source. In this case, Cal-Am.
Yes, sir. Can we please make sure we have questions?
Hey, Mark, this question is for you. You said at the beginning of your talk that you're against, it's a government takeover, implying that it's bad. This is so local, I want to know what's wrong with that. Because the people on the water board are our next door neighbors. They're our friends. They're local. They're with us. If we have a question, we can go right to them. We're not talking about some people far away. We're talking about people right here that pay water bills. And these people are, yes, they're government, but they're our government. So what's wrong with that?
I'd like to take that just in two pieces. The first is, if a decision is made and this measure passes, and I will discuss this in my closing comments, why it's a government takeover. I'll do that. Certainly the public is entitled, if they choose to to go that route. We think that we're very close to a solution to our water supply problems. We have a desalination plant by Cal-Am that's going to move forward. We have a marvelous project with Monterey 1 for 3,500 acre feet. And we have a marvelous project with the Monterey Peninsula Water District for 1,300 acre feet of water coming out of the Carmel River when it's running high in the wintertime and the water will otherwise not be used. What we're saying is we need to maintain focus. The people who run Cal-Am here aren't here. Yes, the parent corporation is not here. But the folks who run it and make the decisions every day live in the same neighborhoods you and I live in. They walk the same walk and talk the same talk we do. So it's not as if a private corporation has somehow got it out for the community. It is the community. It's part of the community. And we just think it's a really bad idea to take a completely alternate course when for the very first time since the mid-90s, we're right on the cusp of a water supply solution that will take us well into the future.
Short second opinion. We already have the most expensive water cost in the entire United States, based on 2 surveys done in by a national organization. And that organization had parameters throughout the entire country, and they applied it to this community and came out with, we're one of the highest, if not the highest, depends on how you want to phrase it, but it's the highest water cost of water in the entire United States. Point number 1. Point number 2, their recent approval of their desal project is the most expensive desal project also that's been considered in California. Partly because the slant wells add more cost to it. So when you have a water supply issue and desal is the option, the desal should not be the first choice because it's so expensive. It takes an enormous amount of energy. The environmental footprint is huge, and the dollar costs are extreme, in our opinion. So on top of the most expensive water you now have, he's proud of the fact that the next step, if it's totally approved, will be the most expensive desal project in the entire country, also in the water bill. And he's proud of that. We think there's an option. And please, it's just the facts. We're not making decisions yet. Just get the facts.
So we're getting close to the last couple of questions, and because we do want to leave them time to do a summary. Yes, ma'am.
Those of us who are working on public water now are volunteers. We don't get paid. We're just out doing what we believe is the right thing to be working on, get the facts. So Mark, I have a question. Are you, in your role as No-On J, being paid to do your job?
Yes, I am. Not by Cal-Am, but by the campaign. But yes, I am being paid, and I think it's okay to earn a living.
Could you tell me then, are you being paid by Fieldworks or? No.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take the microphone away from my face. Yes, I'm being paid, and I think it's okay to earn a living, and that's what I'm doing. And no, we're being paid, we're not being paid by the campaign, and Fieldworks, I guess, is some kind of grassroots thing, and we're not being paid by them either.
Yes, ma'am.
I am distressed by the fact I used to work on projects where it was, we got cost plus. The more money we spent, the more profit we made. That distresses me because it feels like this is what's going on with a private corporation, and a public corporation would not, it would not be in their best interest to do it. Whereas you are clearly beholden to your stock holders, etc., it behooves you to spend more money, make more money. How do you answer that?
Thank you. And what is your name, ma'am?
Mishka.
Mishka? Thank you, Mishka. The fact of the matter is that Callum is not trying to present a most expensive solution to make the most money. This is not a question of how much more profit we can make based on the solution that we come up with. The fact of the matter is that we're going to lose 4,934 acre feet out of the Carmel River on December 31st, 2121. 3,500 acre feet of that will be made up by a marvelous public-private project between Pure Water One Now and Cal-Am. There will be the pipeline, the price on the paper, the pipeline's done, the water will start flowing next August. The idea was, what's the next best solution for the long-term interests of our community? And there was nothing long-term to go to with adequate water supply other than desalinization. The desalinization slant wells are not the most expensive project in the United States. They are expensive. That was a decision made by the Marine Estuary and the CPUC for what was best for the marvelous environment we have here in Monterey. But the decision was not based on profit. It was based on trying to provide this community with a water supply in the future in which we don't have to worry about drought, in which we want to build a house you can, you want a bathroom you can. That was the decision-making process. It's not based on the biggest project we can find so the company can make the most money. And in Moral Measure J, we have to address that because it's part of the reason people are thinking they might vote yes. So Mishka, I appreciate the question.
Just a quick, it's just accidentally useful to have a high-cost project that generates a high bill in order for you to pay it, in order for it to go to the corporation, so it's just accidental. Well, let's say it is accidental, because you didn't intentionally try to get the most expensive project going, it just happens to be the most expensive project going. But we have a choice to look at the facts about, is there a better way of doing business with water or around water? We have that opportunity with Measure J. I'm not hearing arguments on why not to vote for it. I'm hearing a lot of arguments for Cal-Am, why you should vote for it. Because they're giving you the information that is their version of the facts. Why not get the real facts? We know they have an axe to bear, or whatever it is, candle to burn, I don't know those things. They have a reason for doing what they're doing. We are a cash cow in the big economic picture of where we fit with Cal-Am systems statewide and American Water Works nationally. We are a cash cow. We have a choice of looking at whether we want to continue to be a cash cow or not. And that's all we're asking. Let's get the facts.
So the problem we have is that it's 10 minutes till, and we only have time for both of them to do a 5-minute summary of each. So,
2 more questions.
2 more questions. How do I pick out of the 8 hands that just went up? So, do we have any residents that have questions? Do we have a resident that has a question? We have 2 residents.
Sure.
Yes.
What is the company that prepared the appraisal, the $1 billion appraisal? Will you give us that, and will we be able to download the appraisal?
MR evaluations.
Yeah.
This is, excuse me, he should know that. Just want you to see it, this is the company, MVR. And yes, we will send to whomever it is here.
Michelle.
Michelle will give us her email, and we will send this, and you can all download it. It's about 7 or 8 pages long, and it goes through both the rate base as well as the items that are outside the rate base that comprise the $1,044 million. So yes, absolutely.
I have just a short add-on. Would you tell us the salary for the CEO of Cal-Am, who I believe is in New Jersey? Is that correct?
I have no idea. Absolutely none. I have none. The CEO of Cal-Am, New Jersey, I know absolutely nothing about.
Yes.
Yes, I believe that there's so much water in this state, and there are many more people coming in all the time, so I expect that no matter what happens, our water rates are going to go up, no matter what anybody says. It's just a common sense thought, I think. But the man from Cal-Am said that as an option, the desal plant could be established, built. I think the man from MRWBCA did not give us an option, and if he did, I didn't hear it. So what would be the option to this problem?
Do you think this is something that you could talk about in your summaries, each of you? Or do you want to answer both of those questions right now, and then we can go over a little bit of time?
It's kind of a unique question.
Okay, let's do that.
Thank you. The criticism that we have of the PUC is that there was an option on the table that was a less expensive option. It would have bought us 10 to 15 years of time in order to do something less expensive than what Cal-Am was proposing. And that was it. Well, it was an expanded reclaimed water project. It was 2,200 acre feet added on to the existing authorized supply. And reclaimed water. Reclaimed water, recycled water. Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yes. There's already 3,500 acre feet approved in that kind of project. This is an additional total on top of it.
If you take the 3,500 acre feet plus the additional acre footage that Mr. Riley was just talking about, you come up with exactly 700 acre feet a year more water than we're going to have after we have to get out of the river in 21-21. So the expansion of the system total is 700 acre feet if you could get it, which means we stay in a water moratorium. I want to read something quickly. This is to Honorable Mayor Bill Camp, right here, from the city of Salinas. The expansion of the pure water Monterey project is not a feasible alternative to Cal-Am's desalination plant proposal. In fact, it's quite likely there will be no water whatsoever available to augment the 3,500 acre feet of recycled water the Pure Water Monterey project has committed to deliver to the Monterey Peninsula. Now, Cal-Am is committed to it in 6 months, being back to the PUC to see if there's a way to go. But the city of Salinas and the Farm Bureau has sent a strong message, don't count on any more water from us. And even if we got it, it's 700 acre feet a year total.
So we have a moment for each of you to do 5 minutes of summary, and I have a timer this time that will ding. So let's go, since you went first, Mark, we will go with George first.
No, opposite.
So Mark went first last time, so George is going to go first this time.
Thank you. Well, our campaign is simple, and Cal-Am is making it very, very complicated. Cal-Am has a history of failures. Cal-Am has a history of overdrafting. Cal-Am has a history of a large disregard for the ratepayers. And you can see that in the rate structure we have and the rates in general that we're facing with. They were ordered in 1995 to find a new water supply. They tried a new dam, and they abandoned it and sent us the bill. They tried a small desal project up in Moss Landing, failed, sent us the bill. They tried a regional desal project with Marina Coast and the county all involved. They withdrew the funding, it failed, sent us the bill. There are 3 distinct failures in their history of a project. Now, back up. How come the Carmel River is under state orders to minimize the use? Cal-Am overdrafting. Why is the Seaside Basin an adjudicated basin with a structure around it and limitations? Because Cal-Am overdrafted. So my history is 3 failures after they've been ordered to find a supply, 2 overdrafting, and then what's in the future? Another potential overdrafting, or at least an invasion in Marina without water rights. That's on the future. And the desal project that they're working on right now is in deep trouble. Even though it's got an approval from the PUC, it's in deep trouble. And mark my word, wait a week and see if there are any lawsuits coming. Because it's not It's not on a track to succeed. It's on a track to be litigated for all sorts of reasons. All sorts of reasons. Let me just say a few things, and then I'm going to get off. I don't need 5 minutes. Water for profit is wrong. Water should be a resource that's available in the public interest and through a public process that meets needs and maintains sustainability of the watershed, the river sources, managing the water resources that we have, and building infrastructure in the public interest. That's why the profit side of this equation is just totally wrong, because they are incentivized and they're encouraged by the PUC to build and build and build. And whether you like the cost that they're pursuing or not, it's going to be in your bill. You have no way of complaining. You have no way of protest. You have to go to San Francisco to protest. It's not any kind of control. If it's local control, and most people in the United States get their water from public agencies, they know where they go, it's already been mentioned, and that's what we're asking for. Let's try it. Or at least, let's see if it's feasible. If it's feasible. Let's just go down that road. And whatever Cal-Am says it's worth has no weight whatsoever. Because the process for determining a value is already outlined in law, and it will be determined by some other third party, and it will not be Cal-Am. So they can put all the fear factors you want, and you can look at Ojai, and you can look at Felton, and you can look at Missoula, Montana, and they all had very high estimates of the cost. There is a base number also in the data from the PUC, based on Cal-Am's numbers, that the base rate, which is a very common reference point for utility value, is called a rate base. That rate base number is about $125 million. $125 million versus $1 billion. That's the escalation that Cal-Am is trying to put into the discussion. And we don't know what that number is, but there is a process for determining it, and the conclusion will be fair market value. That's the conclusion of the process. So it's not a takeover, it's not a stealing, as much as they use language like that. There's a process, it's a legal process, it's been in law, it's all over the United States, they have this process. And all we say is, if we get that far down the road and Cal-Am doesn't agree to sell, we can go into that process and find out a fair market value. When that happens, then you can have a discussion about whether you want to pay it or you want to pay it or you want to, however it is. But the facts will be known. That's the point. You can't have an honest debate when somebody who's protecting their cash cow and us are looking for kind of a more attractive option. We're looking for it. We're not in control of that process. All we can do is get it started. And all we ask you to do is go yes on J in order to get it started. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just start with Cal-Am. Yes, the river is being overdrafted. And I said it in my remarks and has been since the mid-90s late 90s, because the drought came on us. In 1990, we turned down an off-stream reservoir proposal. Voters did. In 93, we voted down a desal project. In 95, we voted down a dam project. And then in 2010, 2011, there was a major effort at a regional desal solution, and I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of things went wrong. And at that point, Cal-Am was put on the hook by the PUC. You better find a solution now, because we are not going to extend the cease and desist. And losing 4,900 acre feet is almost 60% of our entire water supply system. That's the facts. It's not like pointing fingers at one person. We all made a lot of decisions that got us to this point. Now I want to read something to you, and this is straight out of the measure. It's on the ballot. Proponents of Measure J claim it is nothing more than a feasibility study. In reality, while that may sound good, it has no bearing in reality. The closest Measure J comes to a study is Section 4, Paragraph C, where it directs the general manager within 9 months to complete and submit to the Board of Directors a written plan as to the means to adopt and implement the policy as set forth in paragraph A. This is what paragraph A says. The plan shall address acquisition, ownership, and management of all water facilities and services within the district. It's not a study. It's an order for a takeover. If you read into a plan requirement of the feasibility study, you've done exactly what this will support and want you to do. What is worse, there is no requirement in the Senate for voter input or review of the district's board finding or feasibility. This is a fact, an absolute effort at a government takeover. If you support Measure J, you're going to take control of King and you're authorizing property taxes or fee increases to pay for legal fees. That's just an absolute fact. Yes, Cal-Am is a for-profit corporation, but it's not treating any of us as a cash cow. Proponents of Measure J have already tried to get you to believe that $14 million I've already explained to you is somehow embedded into the 2016 profit picture. That is simply a false statement. My last comment I'd really like to make is this is a big decision for every single one of us. And you clearly know where I stand on this issue, and you clearly know where Mr. Riley stands on this issue. You all want to make up your own minds. What I want to say more than anything else is vote. Vote, vote. It is a constitutional privilege we have in this country that so many people would give anything to have. We believe that this is an ill-founded attempt to try and take over a company that is on the cusp of working with numerous other public agencies, private-public partnerships, to solve a water problem that we have had now for 23 years. And it needs to be solved right now. 2121 is tomorrow morning. And the older I get, the more it's tomorrow morning. So I would ask all of you to think about this very seriously. And all the support material I discussed here today will be sent to the email so you can all have a chance to look at it. And thank you for your attention. It's appreciated.
Thank you both gentlemen for coming today, and thank you for all of you for coming and supporting. And it was a riveting conversation, so thank you all.